So, as you can probably see, from above there, you can hardly see what we've actually done. And to be honest, this is what it's all about, okay? The other wing, you can see it's quite heavy. We'll deal with that in a moment. But now this is drying back on the side, you probably won't really even see it. It is that subtle. But as you can see, on the underside, we need to do obviously something about that. We're going to blend and we're going to tow and drag that around. But generally, this is what we're trying to achieve. It's just these little subtle things. Now I know obviously there's guys out there who do weathering and it's right in your face. It's big, it's bold, it's brash and everything else like that. I prefer to have these little subtleties. So it also, I think it adds more depth. Instead of just having 2 or 3 layers, big colour changes, you know, bleach paint, things like that, heavy duty mottling, I prefer to do things which are just little shades off of it. I think it looks a lot more realistic and I think it gives it a sort of better view of scale than obviously these bigger ones. But anyway, it's personal choice. So that's what I've done with this one. So as you can see on here, first port of call, we'll do the top side just here as we've got it. Actually, some of this doesn't look too bad at all. It looks like oil spills and stuff like that, but I can understand why perhaps some people might think, ooh, don't like that too much. So what we got down here is just a brush, all right? And weirdly enough, what we're going to do is we're going to use our leftover thinners we've got down in here as our area. So what we're going to do, we've just picked a bit of that up there, and then we're just going to soak it all off and clean out the brush pretty much solidly onto here. Now the reason for doing that is so you don't make a clean spot. Then if we start on this side, what we're going to do is very lightly start to drag it, and then what's going to happen is, or hopefully will happen is, okay, we'll be in a situation where it's going to start to all run south. Okay, so we're picking up all this grime and this dirt, and it's now beginning to fade. Okay, so we're just picking it up, and as you can see, we can start to play with this. So obviously direction of airflow, so we're just dragging this all the way back. And now we're going to start to work other areas. Okay, and this first one, so what we're going to do, obviously we've got lots of grime going around this area, but like we've done many times before, this will start to physically lighten. Okay, and it becomes a more of a blended look than a solid look, and that's actually what we're trying to achieve with all of this. Okay, and it's starting to work its way, so now it's looking quite dirty and all those areas. What we're going to do is just going to load up, going to grab a bit more junky stuff. Really this just moistens the brush because you brush most of it off. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're just going to grab a little bit of this. Again, it's all this subtle stuff that we're working on. But do you remember back in the day we had this horrible paint failure? Look at it now, it's really starting to work and blend in. Okay, we've got this little dark spot here which we're not sure what that is, so we're going to give it a rub. Okay, and then as you see we can actually start to play. So a little bit of stuff going down in here, so we're just going to give this a rub, loosen it all, and then direction of airflow, just going to drag it back. And all we're trying to do is just make a worn area. We've got access panels here. This stuff's going to get gnarly, it's going to get broken up. So all we're trying to do now is just fade all of this in. So again, just picking up. Okay, so this stuff just down the back here. Again, just down in there, and then we're just going to blend all of it in. So nothing stands out too much. Okay, so again we're just going to come in here and we're just going to blend that across. Okay, and you can see this type of effect we're going with now. We're sort of breaking up and mottling up and doing else. Now as this brush begins to dry, it becomes a lot more passive, so it's not making big streak marks, it's more of a nice off shot that's going on and everything else like that, and that's how we get this type of effect. Okay, so again just down in here we're just going to come on to this little wingtip, and again we're going to go right over this decal, and we're literally just trying to blend, and so all grime and all these areas come together. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a bit of thinners on the brush because we've run out, to be honest. So again we're brushing all of this off, get rid of absolutely everything, because to start with it will be really strong. So again we're just gonna, you can see down in this area. Okay, so what we're going to do, So we can leave this as a little streak. You know, and this is what we're saying about working with weathering. Don't fight it, work with it. Okay, so we're going to leave that little streak there as if something's broken loose from that area. Then we can use the soaked one just to do some more work. Okay. So just pop this guy around in here just to aggravate. Okay. And we're just going to buff this right over. And remember, we haven't physically done anything to anything on here. This is just purely paint and wash and everything else, but that's how we sort of mottled all of this down and in there. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the same on the other wing, but what we'll do is we'll flip this guy over so you can see what's going on the underside. Okay, so down in this, very similar. Okay, basically a dry brush. Okay, and because you're using this part of the brush and you're just wiping around, what's going to happen is it will cling to these edges, which will give you a far nicer look. Okay, so we just get rid of all of that. Okay. Okay, and then round this guy up here, so again, very lightly, just around all these parts. Going with direction of airflow, don't forget, always with direction of airflow. Okay. So we're just going to come in. And again, it's just blending. And you can see how it all just works in together. This is all a part of this style of weathering, is just blending. And to be honest, I think it's very therapeutic. I think it's a lot of bit of fun. And I think it's one of those things where a lot of people will overlook this style because they feel it's like, you know, not very realistic, or it's this or it's that. But I think what most of the problem people have with this is it takes quite a bit of time. It's not something that happens in one pass. You know, it's a few passes to make this stuff work. It's quite a subtle process. But you can see everything we've just done down this entire area here. You can see how it's just nice, and you've got more of a dusty type look to everything that's going on. Okay, and then we just do this side down in here to start with. We're just going to run everywhere, and we're just going to blend. Okay, we can take this, and again, it's just an effect. Okay, and if you want to make it a little bit stronger, we're not going to wash as much as this off, but we can start to chip at it, just to knock this guy back on this side. And there we go. You see, it's not a quick fix. It's not a, you know, one of these things that sort of jumps out and bites you within seconds and everything else like that. It's just one of those slightly slower processes that just takes a little bit more time, a little bit more work, but actually works really, really well. Something I'm quite a fan of, because as again, with all this type of weathering, you can add, you can knock it off and everything else. And hopefully you can see now in these tires, things like that, we've got some nice effects. Probably too much on this brush, but same thing, you can just lightly give them a rub, just to give a small type of effect. Okay, right the way over these. It's still quite a bit flashing around. It's still quite wet this, so we're going to need to go back and take care of that. But underneath now, hopefully you can see from an overall shot how what we've tried to achieve down here is this dusty black look that doesn't just look like painted surface and everything else like that, okay? But again, we can pop in and we can refilter and re-energize and do whatever we need to do to all the undersides of this, including the tyre tread itself. So by literally just giving this a bit of a buff and stuff, we can really bring some of this back to life in all these areas. Okay, so that's pretty good on there. I'm really happy actually how this has worked and how it's all come out. It's actually come along pretty much as I expected. Okay, so having a lot of fun with it. The only thing you have to remember is when you're handling it, you're handling stuff that has got this stuff all over. So just be prone to fingerprints. If you want to do, you could wear gloves or leave a wing free or something else and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is carry on buffing it around, blending it in, making sure we're happy to everywhere we are. When we are, the last stage of this, come back in with a little bit of neat. This is just to make oil stains, direct watermarks, things like that we can do onto this one. Then we can sort of do final assembly, because obviously we need to get the aerials on, we need to get the last of the doors on, we need to get the canopy installed onto this one. Once we're happy with that, we can do the final little bits of weathering to that, because obviously this needs to be blended in and everything else with it as well. So we'll get those sorted out. Once that's done, we'll be ready for the final reveal. Okay, so we're going along really well with this one. Should be able to handle it now. It's been drying off. As you can see, hopefully we've got some nice streaky subtle weathering. Nice work across the wings, as you can see. That blending work we were trying to do all on that wing section. Okay, and then just generally all over looking the part. So I'm really happy how this has come out now. So what we want to do is a little bit more sort of direct type weathering onto this one. So the way to do that really is neat oils. Now, where would you use these types of instances? High weathered areas. Okay, we've already put on subtle sort of rain marks, grime, wear and tear, but perhaps you want to put in something a little bit more precise. Okay, so using oils is going to be very strong. So we will be using the smoke, and obviously you want a very nice thin brush for putting these types of things in. You can blend them and go through the motions of it. So I'm looking around this and I'm thinking we're probably going to get a little bit down here at the tail that's going to run down the sides, purely because obviously whether it's going to be down the back, then it's going to pull lowest point and then track down. Probably a little bit around this front area. It's going to track down the side of the canopy. It's got like a point to it. It's going to drop down there as well. Little bits off of obviously where the gun chutes are, stuff like that. And then just generally just some small little parts along areas, you know, obviously where you're going to get grease and grime build up, things like that. So all we do is, I'm going to have to clean that cap because it's got a little bit on there. We take the tiniest amount, and this is all we literally want. We're going to come along here, okay, and we're just going to put a tiny little mark, okay. I'm going to put a tiny little mark just there, and then this area here, we're just going to put a tiny little mark, okay. Again, nothing very strong. Then we're going to think about obviously the wings and stuff like that. So what I'm going to think is, I'm thinking, well look, we've got a bit of a seam here, so I'm just going to put a tiny little brushful there, and we're going to do the same on the other side. We're just imagining the slat area, it builds up, perhaps comes into that area. Maybe where we've got the actual the joins for the areas as they come up from the actual activators from this slat system. So where they are, we're going to put a little bit there, and then again on the corner. Again, it's only a small amount. This little area down in here, we've got some bits going on. We know there's one probably around about in there. Okay, and there's going to be another join one in there like that. And then off the back of the slats, to be honest, we'll just move this around here. Sorry, the flaps, we know we've got an activator point probably in about there, and another one about there, and I think there's one about there, and another one there. That's just for allowing for stuff coming down the back, okay? Then you can go on and obviously do other areas. So we're just imagining perhaps we've got a little one going on there, and you can see we're only using one brush full for absolutely everything, perhaps a little bit just around these areas on this guy. And then obviously you think about it in the actual horizontal as well for things like on rudders and stuff coming back. But for the moment, we're just thinking about everything that's going south. Once you put those in like that, you've got a couple of options, okay? The first one is obviously you can do it with another brush and you can just literally bring it down, or you can use things like cotton buds. But remember, if you're using a cotton bud with a downward motion, when you go back up to the top side to do it again, you're going to have a wider footprint, so it's actually going to make a bit more of a mess. What I tend to do is just grab a thicker brush like this guy, okay. Alright, so then on here, for instance, you can see it a little bit there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to pull it down, okay? And you can see immediately how strong that is, okay? So we're just going to pull this guy down. And we're going to blend this guy down. Then what happens is, the more you go over this, the more it fades. This is just the first few strokes to start this going. So you want to go direction of airflow, alright? So we know we've got this guy just in here. So we're just going to pull this back. Okay, so we're going to be using these, and it's just little areas, as you can see. And for the moment, don't worry about if it all goes too big and too much. Don't worry about if it hardly you can see it. Okay, and then as I say, we've got these little areas here. So we've got this one here, and then we've got these ones running down the back. Because what we're going to do is actually blend these in. So if we needed to, we can go back with other things to blend them in, but this is just to get you going. You can see we've got quite a brush full just there. So to start with, this one down the back here, we know it needs to blend quite a bit. So this is what we're going to do now. Just going to go into a flick motion to add quite a lot of depth and grime just in this area. Okay, then because we've got quite a strong part at the beginning, we're just going to rub it. Okay, and then again with this little guy down in here, to start with, we're just dragging and blending. Okay, and that one's going to go quite nicely, so I'm happy to leave that one as it is. This guy here is very strong, but we're imagining he's probably got a lot of wear in this actual area. Okay, so we're just going to keep brushing at it, keep taking it, and just continuously brushing. And you can leave some of it and just move off. And then when you're finding perhaps it's not going as fast as you want to, just go over it with a Q-tip and just fade it in, okay, and just blend that in and just slightly moving to the sides. So you're just left now with a faded grime mark in there, alright, and that is literally it. It's as simple as this. So again, you can just come in, and this little guy here, we're just going to fade it, fade it, fade it, okay, and these will just give little telltales to something that's going on. Okay, like this guy here is a little bit over the top, and because we're going back now over this decal as well, it's going to do all the business in there. And then again on this one, but hopefully you can see it's just a little area, but it's a little bit stronger than everything else, so consequently it all sort of blends in. Now these guys down in here, they might work, they might not, they might need a bit more attention, a bit more pulling around. Okay, and if you find like there it's a little bit faded, we want to add a little bit more, we're just going to come in and we're going to put some precisely down it, these guys back here. Okay, and we're just going to put in these smudgy lines, and then this guy here is a little bit strong, so we're just going to go over it with this, then we can blend. Okay, and we're just going to blendy blend. And this is the great thing about it. So this way you can take it as far, you can blend it away almost, you can actually turn it into something else. So what I'm doing now is each side sort of like a chevron. Okay, each side just to fade it off because it's a little bit too strong in that one location. And again, it's just to fade it all the way over. Okay. Now obviously if you were thinking smoke, exhaust, gun marks, you could do exactly the same technique as well. Okay, so that's those just like that. Then the other thing of course you can do, if you wanted to, you can just exaggerate perhaps something that may have been going on with this. So just down in here, we're just going to lightly brush a little bit of oil just over that entire access panel and perhaps over this one here. And we know we've got this rear one which is quite faded. Okay, so now those are in, and again we can just blend them, go in the direction of airflow and just making a shadow effect. Okay, and that is literally it. There's nothing to it. It's very straightforward, very, very easy. Okay, and you're going to go around the entire model doing this entire thing, but if you wanted to, you can add to it, you can take it away, okay, whatever feels right to you. Okay, just to put these little subtle details in, and that's all they are, is little subtleties that are going to go in. Again, handling wise, they're not too much of a problem. You know, you might just want to be a little bit careful for a few hours, just as these things tend to go off. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put another little guy just in there, another one just in there, and then another one just in down there. Okay, then we're just thinking as we did before. So one there, one there, one there, one there, one there, corners. Okay. See, pretty straightforward. There's nothing hard to any of this. Okay. And again, if you wanted to, like here, we'll leave them a little bit stronger. Okay, so you can see. You can see you can put in heavy duty marks, or you can make them quite light. Just remember, direction of airflow, so think about your angles. Just gentle flicking motions. And again, you can knock them back and blend. To be honest, I prefer just keep going until they fade to when you're happy, rather than going direct in there and trying to remove them. And don't forget, worst case scenario to all of this, don't forget, hit it with a bit of enamel thinners and it'll be never there, it will just vanish. But again, the other nice thing about this technique is everything's working alongside everything else. So you've done this thing about texture, it's layering, you've got loads of layers going on here. Okay, so we're just flicking back and forth just to speed up. Okay. Write those all over those wings again, and it will just happen that we'll just go in, and again we'll do this thing running down the backs of the flaps and various things. And then we can just come in. Just to give that effect of oil and leaking. Things leaching. There's a little bit too much on my brush, so we're just going to pinch it. And again, just keep going at it until you're happy. If you don't like it, take it off, start again. Alright, remember, there's no risk to anything I ever do. I'm not one of these guys that's just going to go in there chucking in paint and hoping it's all going to work. Okay, I've always got usually a get out clause. Okay. So this one at the back's pretty strong, so we're just going to pinch a bit away. This one as well, so just downward drags. And then we're just going to come in and buff it. And again, when your brush gets really loaded, just don't put it near terps or enamel thinners or anything. Otherwise what will happen is it will just wash everything away like we did the first time. This is more a case of, right, akin to that thing of saying, right, this is a blending action rather than a trying to remove it than what we had. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to grab a little bit of this, and where these foot areas are, just going to grab a tiny bit around them. Okay, just trying to give it that look of wear and tear. Okay. Don't forget, you can use this on black as just as much as everything else. Okay, so there we go. That is how that is. So what I'll do in a moment, I'll carry on and we'll put it absolutely everywhere that we want it. Some on the bottom even. You could go in with lighter colours, you use greys or obviously browns and things like that, as and when you want to go right the way over the model. But generally, that is how easy it is. So what we're going to do is I'm going to carry on with that just around those areas. For the moment though, we can actually come in, and if you want to, you can stick some of the actual clear canopy parts on. Now these are literally as easy as they are going to click to the side and just glue into the side. Okay, so that's a nice easy couple of tiniest little drops of super glue. In fact, I'll show you. Okay, so what you want to do is just come along, grab a little tub like this. Okay, that can go down, and then just grab a smidge because we don't want any fogging. Okay, and because we don't want any fogging, we are just going to use a tiny little bit. Okay, so we're just going to do the edge and just a tiny little bit on the inside, but again not too much, because if we got too much it will fog. And then this is just going to be a case of coming in, lining up, hold to the side, wait for it to bite, and then release. Simple as that. Very, very straightforward. Okay, so no problem there. And then same with the rear. Tiny little bit on the inside and the bottom side, just so it's all got plenty to bite to. And then again, we're going to come in, and it is a two-piece system. Okay, similar angles obviously. Hold. Once you're happy, you can release. Alright, then what actually we'll do is we'll come in with PVA glue, a couple of drops of PVA glue, and that will weld those in place. And then, to be honest, hate to do this now, but we need to push through. We're going to tiny little bit of super glue, and then we can just come in, line this up, get it into position. We can put that in. It is simple as that. And then same on the other side, and then we can put these together. Let's move this out of the way. Trying desperately not to bend it. Okay. Actually, that went in really, really well. I'm quite impressed with that. I thought we might have to do it. Then the idea is, once that's in there and it's bitten, which it has, we just need to centre up its gaze. And again, using the not totally fast super glue, it should go in quite nicely like that. I do believe they toe in slightly. Again, we'll check our references on this one to see how they should go. And it looks like they do slightly point in. So should have done this before, but that's a great thing. It's super glue. It's not so much of a problem. It goes wrong, we'll pull it off and we'll go again. It does look like a chin in slightly, perhaps just a little bit. Got a nice photo of it there. They definitely point a little bit in, but I don't think they point in quite as much as I've got it. So again, we're just going to come in, and we can manoeuvre this, that's more like it, until we're more happy of how it is. Alright, so let me just stick this in front of me. That's it. Okay, so to show you guys, that's in. That sits in there. Get it in there like that. Okay, so everything is in position now with that in there just the same way. Okay, so really, really nice. Alright. So that's pretty good. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop around literally and just do a little bit more of that black work here and there just to liven it up, get it into place and everything else like that. We'll go around, we'll make sure we've got the gear sorted out, everything's been wiped back as is required and things like that. We can think about getting the final aerials onto this one as well, getting them into location, making sure we're happy with those. And also down here on the inside of the cockpit, we come along just a little bit of paint just on some edges just to darken those off and make them look all okay and everything like that. If we're all happy, we'll be ready for the final reveal.